The Sierra Nevada mountains project an illusion of isolated tranquility, a towering facade of pine and stone that shattered completely on the morning of April 12, 1981. Nestled within a dense, seemingly peaceful forest, the Keddie Resort appeared as a rustic haven for families seeking quiet refuge away from the city. Instead, Cabin 28 became the site of a massacre so profound it permanently scarred the history of Northern California. The brutal reality waiting inside that wood-paneled structure defied any conventional understanding of rural safety, marking the genesis of an enduring American tragedy. 14-year-old Sheila Sharp returned from a sleepover at a neighboring cabin to a waking nightmare that would define the rest of her existence. Opening the front door of her family's rented home, she encountered a scene of unimaginable violence that forced her to flee backward into the freezing morning air. The trauma of that single moment effectively ended her childhood in an instant, replacing her innocence with an agonizing demand for answers that the local authorities were entirely unprepared to provide. Inside the blood-stained living room lay the bound and battered bodies of 36-year-old Sue Sharp, her 15-year-old son, John, and his 17-year-old friend, Dana Wingate. The perpetrators had utilized a combination of bladed weapons and a hammer, leaving behind a chaotic tableau that suggested a deeply personal rage or a terrifyingly disorganized frenzy. Yet, amidst the horrific carnage, 3 younger children slept unharmed in an adjacent bedroom, a chilling anomaly in an otherwise merciless slaughter that baffled the first responders. The initial response by the Plumas County Sheriff's Office established a disastrous trajectory for the entire investigative process. Deputies arriving at the remote resort failed to secure the perimeter effectively, allowing unauthorized individuals, neighbors, and curious onlookers to wander through the immediate vicinity. This fundamental breach of protocol meant that the pristine isolation necessary for accurate forensic pathology was irreparably compromised before the first official crime scene photographs were even snapped by the lead detectives. Crucial physical evidence was inadvertently destroyed or entirely overlooked during those critical, chaotic early hours of the investigation. A bloody footprint on the wooden porch, a potential key to identifying the specific footwear of the killers, was neither cast in plaster nor adequately protected from the elements and heavy foot traffic. The fundamental legal concept of corpus delicti, the concrete material evidence establishing that a crime has been committed, was severely undermined by a staggering lack of methodological rigor. Fear rapidly saturated the small logging communities scattered throughout the mountainous region as news of the slaughter spread. Residents who previously left their doors unlocked now armed themselves at night, viewing longtime neighbors and transient workers with intense, paranoid suspicion. The resort itself transformed overnight from a peaceful vacation destination into a monument of terror, its vacancy signs serving as a grim daily reminder that a killer or multiple killers walked freely among them in the daylight. The horror of the situation deepened significantly when investigators realized a 4th victim was missing from the bloodied cabin. 12-year-old Tina Sharp had vanished into the cold night, leaving no immediate trace of a struggle in her small bedroom. Her sudden disappearance shifted the parameters of the case from a static triple homicide to an active, desperate kidnapping, stretching the already overwhelmed local law enforcement resources to their absolute breaking point. Investigative attention soon focused intensely on 2 men residing in a neighboring cabin just yards away, Martin Smart and his associate, Bo Bede. Smart possessed a highly volatile temper and a known vocal animosity towards Sue Sharp, who had recently advised his wife to leave him due to severe domestic abuse. Bobede, a transient with a documented violent criminal history, provided an intimidating physical presence that perfectly complemented Smart's erratic and threatening behavior. During preliminary interrogations at the police station, both men offered shifting alibis and peculiar, unprompted statements that should have triggered intense scrutiny. Smart even volunteered the bizarre detail that his favorite hammer was inexplicably missing, a description that perfectly matched one of the primary murder weapons used next door. Yet the lead detectives, operating under a veil of either profound incompetence or inexplicable leniency, allowed the prime suspects to walk out of the station unhindered. This investigative breakdown highlights the catastrophic consequences of institutional negligence in high-stakes criminal inquiries. When foundational policing standards are ignored, the resulting evidentiary vacuum makes securing a grand jury indictment nearly impossible. The failure to rigorously press Smart and Wingate effectively granted them a form of shadow immunity, setting a dangerous precedent for how justice could be permanently derailed by a lack of professional accountability at the highest local levels. A handwritten letter sent by Martin Smart to his estranged wife shortly after the murders provided what many legal analysts consider a veiled confession. In the correspondence, he lamented that he had paid the ultimate price for her love, a cryptic phrasing that strongly suggested his direct involvement in the slaughter at Cabin 28. This document represented a critical psychological window into the mens rea, or criminal intent, of the primary suspect, offering a rare glimpse into a killer's mindset. Inexplicably, this crucial piece of correspondence was not entered into the official evidence log for decades following its initial discovery. Whether through deliberate obfuscation by corrupt officials or sheer administrative incompetence, the letter languished in a forgotten basement file, neutralizing one of the most compelling pieces of circumstantial evidence in the state. The loss of such a vital document underscores how bureaucratic failures can actively shield dangerous perpetrators from the reach of the law. The agonizing mystery of the missing young girl reached a grim resolution 3 years later, nearly 100 miles away in neighboring Butte County. A man searching for discarded bottles in a remote, densely wooded area discovered a fragmented human skull resting in the underbrush. Dental records quickly confirmed the skeletal remains belonged to Tina Sharp, transforming the narrative from an ongoing kidnapping back into a finalized quadruple homicide that shocked the state anew. The discovery of her remains raised profound logistical questions that continue to baffle forensic experts and seasoned detectives today. How did the killers manage to subdue and transport a struggling 12-year-old girl out of a densely packed resort without alerting the sleeping neighbors? The sheer audacity required to execute such a silent extraction suggests a level of premeditation, or perhaps terrifying luck, that defies standard criminal profiling models for disorganized offenders. As years turned into decades, the physical structures of the Keddie Resort mirrored the slow, agonizing decay of the investigation itself. Cabin 28 stood abandoned, its windows boarded up, serving as a dark pilgrimage site for true crime enthusiasts until it was finally demolished in 2004. The town's inability to cleanse itself of the tragedy reflected a broader societal paralysis when confronted with unsolved, extreme violence that shatters the illusion of communal safety. The Plumas County Sheriff's Office eventually reopened the cold case in 2013, assigning a new generation of investigators to dissect the crumbling original files. These modern detectives faced the daunting task of reconstructing a compromised crime scene using faded photographs, degraded physical samples, and the fading memories of surviving witnesses. They immediately recognized the staggering scope of the early missteps, publicly acknowledging the systemic failures of their predecessors in a rare display of institutional transparency. A significant forensic breakthrough materialized in 2016 when a metal detector enthusiast located a heavily rusted hammer in a local, dried-up pond. The tool matched the exact description of the weapon Martin Smart claimed to have lost, and its location aligned perfectly with the likely escape route of the fleeing perpetrators. While severely degraded by decades of water exposure, the discovery proved that physical remnants of the truth still lay hidden in the Sierra Nevada soil. For the surviving Sharp children, these modern investigative revelations offer only a bitter, hollow comfort. Their lives have been defined by an agonizing, multi-generational wait for a legal resolution that always seems just out of reach. The emotional toll of knowing who likely destroyed their family while watching the justice system fail to act decisively represents a unique form of psychological torture that no passage of time or therapeutic intervention can fully heal. The harsh reality of the American legal system dictates that justice delayed is very often justice permanently denied. Both Martin Smart and Bo Bubede died decades ago, taking their darkest secrets to the grave and escaping any earthly prosecution for their alleged crimes. Even if incontrovertible, perfectly preserved DNA evidence were discovered today, there is no one left alive to stand trial for the atrocities committed against Sue, John, Dana, and Tina. The legacy of this investigative breakdown serves as a stark, enduring warning to modern law enforcement agencies across the country. It demonstrates with brutal clarity how the initial hours of a homicide response dictate the entire trajectory of the pursuit of truth. When the chain of custody is broken and critical leads are casually ignored, the resulting damage compromises the integrity of the judicial process itself, leaving victims entirely abandoned by the state. Persistent rumors of a local law enforcement cover-up continue to swirl around the cold case, fueled by the inexplicable leniency shown to the prime suspects in 1981. While hard, prosecutable evidence of a grand conspiracy remains elusive, the sheer volume of investigative anomalies forces objective observers to question the true motivations of the original detectives. The line between gross, actionable incompetence and deliberate, malicious protection remains frustratingly blurred in the historical record. The heavy shadow of that April morning still looms over Plumas County, a suffocating silence that speaks to the fragility of human life and the stark limitations of the law. The local community remains forever tethered to a violent history it cannot change and a complex mystery it cannot definitively solve. This enduring trauma highlights how unsolved murders inflict massive collateral damage that reverberates through a rural region for generations. The Keddie cabin murders endure as a chilling testament to the chaotic nature of violence and the catastrophic, irreversible cost of institutional failure. It is an investigative breakdown analysis focusing on how negligence transforms a solvable crime into a multi-generational cold case, stripped of closure. It leaves behind only the cold reality of 4 lives brutally extinguished and a justice system that ultimately proved powerless. The truth of what happened in the dark remains locked away, a permanent stain on the ledger of history.